What a program we have for you today. The big news from our friendly neighbors to the north in Canada last night, a Liberal landslide in the Canadian election. Justin Trudeau will be Canada's next prime minister after leading the Liberal Party to what for many was a surprising majority government win. The Conservative Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, was looking for his fourth consecutive mandate. Not happening. He is stepping down as party leader. This is going to be the second time for Canada to be led by a Trudeau. The 43-year-old Trudeau follows the footsteps of his father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who was prime minister for almost 16 years before retiring in 1984. Canadians, he said, sent a clear message that, quote, "It's time for change in this country, my friends. Real change." He spoke to his supporters in Calgary. Stephen Harper spoke to supporters in Calgary, made no mention about his political future, but he did say the people are never wrong, accepting the results of the election, not like he really had much of a choice, and many defeats for the Conservative Party, several cabinet ministers, a number of local officials, and the Liberal Party, a total reversal, Lewis, of recent political fortunes. They were crushed in Canada in 2011. Only 36 seats they had control of after that 2011 election. A big change. And now the Liberals have 184 ridings where they were elected or leading. Just a huge shakeup.
I'm happy for the Canadians, right? This is kind of a big deal. And now, well, I guess the prime minister is a bit of a goofball, it seems, but still a lot better than the guy who was in there before, or so I've heard.
What was the voter turnout as of this morning? 68.49%. Now let's contextualize that. Consider how rural 80% of Canada is. 80% of the population lives within 100 miles of the US border. And they still had way higher voter turnout than in the United States, which I'll remind you in 2012 was 57.5%. 68% isn't even some overwhelming huge voter turnout, but it is still 20% higher than we had in the United States in the last election. We need higher voter turnout here. It will help Liberals. Just go vote. Rural Canada, overwhelmingly rural Canada, has managed a 20% higher voter turnout than the United States.
It's great. I'm not sure how they really got people to do that. I've said before that we need to make it easier for people to vote here. The way in which we vote and the times that it happens, the places it happens, it can be so much easier.
So let's talk a little bit about possible changes under the Liberal government and also some concerns from progressives about what is to come. Possible changes we could see under this new Liberal government. Tax increases for the top 1%, combined with maybe tax cuts for the Canadian middle class. A crackdown on tax shelters and tax havens. Changes to C-51. C-51 is this controversial anti-terrorism bill in Canada. Maybe some progress on marijuana legalization, adding capital to transportation and infrastructure, maybe some progress on euthanasia, increasing funding for the CBC, increasing college student grants, and maybe reinstating some of the protections for natural resources like lakes and forests. Stephen Harper, the now outgoing prime minister, removed many of those. So that's on the what we might see change side. Possible concerns from progressive Canadians. I was tweeting with a bunch of progressive Canadians this morning. Phil wrote in, he responded to me saying, the Liberal Party has a tradition of running from the left and governing from the right once they're in power. They supported the current surveillance law. They will likely support TPP. In contrast, their more progressive opponents had plans for national daycare and pharmacare. An anonymous tweeter from Quebec said, "Remember when Obama replaced Bush and everything was supposed to change? Canada had that moment. There isn't that much difference between Harper and Trudeau besides meaningless social issues like pot." Shitagi wrote to me saying, "After what we went through for the last 10 years, I can't think of anything that will be worse for progressives off the top of my head. And lastly, Teresa writing in saying, progressives lost. Liberals are more central. I don't trust them, but I'm cautiously hopeful that they will make some change. So, Lewis, not all progressives thrilled about this, generally recognizing that it is a move in the right direction, but some skeptical that it is a very drastic move.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, despite having a conservative controlled government, uh, compared to the United States, Canada was still extremely liberal,
Right.
right? I mean, it's like a completely different, you have to look at it through a different prism. So I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, how far to the left do Canadians really want to go?
All right. We will continue to cover it. If you are Canadian, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, send me your thoughts about yesterday's election results.